Welcome to Hail to the Podcast, brought to you by the Maize and Blue Review. This is our feature podcast, our roundtable format. We try to get as many folks from the Maize and Blue crew in to talk about everything Michigan athletics. That's what we will be doing tonight with myself, Trevor McHugh. I am the senior editor, Maize and Blue Review, joined by Josh Henske, our insider and publisher. How you doing tonight, Josh?
I'm doing great. Happy to be back.
Yes, sir. Been a little bit. Our do-it-all staff writer who covers every single sport and ones you probably haven't heard of, Mr. Brock Heilig. How you doing, brother?
Doing great.
I gave you a shout out the other night. You're literally covering, it was like 3 games at the same time. Super impressive, man. And you've probably already seen him on our recruiting podcast, Who's Got Next, but Rivals All-Star all over the map. Staff writer Jared Hallis joining us tonight, brother. How you doing?
Good, man. Happy to be here with all you guys. It's going to be a fun one.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you here. So obviously going to start with acknowledging and sending our thoughts to the Michigan State community, the victims, their families, the students, the teachers, alumni, again, the entire community. Obviously everything they've been going through since the tragedy on Monday. We are hardly the platform here to come up with any solutions or the people that pretend we know the solution. So we're not going to be doing that today, but just want to make sure everyone knew they were in our thoughts. And obviously that's kind of going to tie into our first topic here with Michigan basketball playing a game on Saturday at Chrysler against Michigan State. That'll be their first game since the tragedy on Monday. There was some conversation about whether the game would occur or not. And then obviously both universities came out and made it clear it was a decision between both schools and admins and coaches and players, and they decided to go ahead with the game. So along with that, Josh, first off, you released a column. I don't remember if it was the day after the 2 days, but you and I were kind of going back and forth, and I thought you did a good job of just putting our thoughts out there. We were obviously having a tough time explaining how we felt. But now that we know the game's going to happen and some other things that Michigan's going to do with Michigan State for this, I guess I'll just give you the floor here. Kind of, obviously it's a unique situation, but how do you feel about heading into this Saturday and how these two programs are trying to unite together?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost kind of poetic that Michigan and Michigan State are playing each other in this type of format after, a event that rocked the state. Obviously this is a Michigan State East Lansing issue, but this is something that unites an entire state. It's no longer about the petty rivalry, the name calling, the whatever, the mudslinging or whatever you want to call it. This is real life. This is real life. We're talking about lives being lost. We're talking about, a community, shaken to its core, and that community spreads well beyond East Lansing. And, it feels very poetic that both programs are meeting, just shortly after this event happened. And I really think it's a really good thing what Michigan is doing, with the helmet decals and moment of silence, t-shirts, and, just outwardly showing support because, it's beyond just, a Michigan State rivalry thing. This is we are Michiganders, and this is serious, and this is, something to unite over. It will never be a permanent uniting, but right now all that matters is that the community, the East Lansing community, gets support and has people behind them and in their corner. And I think Michigan has done a really good job of making that known. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the atmosphere is going to be like on Saturday. With two programs that, not really necessarily focused on a basketball game. I think their minds are going to be elsewhere, but, it's got to be played. So, ultimately we'll see what happens.
I think, I won't stay united for forever, right? But I think maybe some rivalry banter on Saturday would be exactly what that community is looking for, right? Some sense of normalcy. So I do think, obviously, with all the things going up leading to the game, I think you're right. I would hope once the ball's tipped and a few possessions go back and forth that maybe they'll start playing basketball and that'll just be the distraction that everybody needs. So, and that's kind of the thing, right? There is going to be a basketball game played. And it's a pretty important game for Michigan, potentially. Brock, we were talking about the Indiana game as kind of a must-win for Michigan, coming off of a Michigan win streak, thinking, hey, if they win this one, we've got the quad one. They're going to be in that first 4 out territory. I'll let you talk about this, but obviously lose that game in ugly fashion and then go on to play Wisconsin and again lose at the end kind of in ugly fashion. So I guess at this point, what does Michigan have to do from a basketball standpoint to get back on track, finish the season strong? And is there any path to the national tournament that doesn't involve Michigan winning the Big Ten tournament?
Obviously, yeah, things are not looking great for Michigan right now, and the path to the NCAA tournament is starting to get smaller and smaller. I guess it's really not looking good. And 5 games left in the regular season. You've got Michigan State, Rutgers, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Indiana left. All of those are pretty good teams. I mean, Michigan State's already beaten Michigan, so has Wisconsin and Indiana. And then you got Rutgers and Illinois, 2 teams who are no joke in the Big Ten either, right? So it's definitely a challenge. And 5 games left. I think there is a path to get to the NCAA tournament. I mean, without winning the Big Ten tournament, I mean, but technically Michigan could win all 5 of their last regular season games and maybe win 2 in the Big Ten tournament and lose in the championship. And I think at that point they'd still be in. But realistically, I think the best this team could do over this 5-game stretch is maybe go 3-2 and maybe win a game in the Big Ten tournament. And at that point, you're looking at like an 18-14 record maybe. And I don't think that's going to get them in. So yeah, the path is there, but it's going to be tough. And they might have to just go and win the Big Ten tournament at this point. I mean, that's really the only path that I see. I mean, like I said, you could go and just run the table up until the Big Ten tournament championship and lose to, say, Purdue or something like that. But yeah, it's looking rough. And touching on this Michigan State game, this game coming up, it's not going to be normal. I don't know how players are going to feel because Michigan State, I don't think practiced until Wednesday. And even then I heard they were just not there mentally. Like, how could they be, right? So I don't know if Michigan State's going to be all there, and I don't know if Michigan's going to be all there in terms of just the mental battle it is to play a basketball game. And then going back to last year's game, you got Hunter Dickinson taunting Tom Izzo on the Michigan State bench as he's running down the floor. I don't know if there's going to be much of that again this year, just because it's just not going to be normal. I don't know what the atmosphere is going to be like and what the emotions are going to be like between the 2 teams. But hopefully, Trevor, like you said, once the ball is tipped, they can hopefully find some level of normalcy.
I mean, that's the hope, but also you're right. I mean, it's just not. It isn't. So Josh said it too, kind of put a bow on that. It is poetic that these 2 teams get to play. And, the rivalry has gotten toxic in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, obviously this is not how you would want this to happen, but there is an opportunity to bury some of that nonsense and in this moment come together. And again, it's not going to stay forever, and it shouldn't. That there should be that sibling level of rivalry, right? But, Michigan, we saw with the baseball team already today where they came out together, took a knee together before the game, like Josh said too, with the logos on the helmet. So we'll see. I think it's going to be emotional. It's going to be an interesting atmosphere. I am hopeful for the sake of everyone that it does end up feeling like a basketball game, because I think that's what everybody's looking for. Do you remember Izzo's quote exactly, Brock, about, or at least paraphrase?
He said something along the lines of athletics can be used as a way to help the community heal or something like that. And just bring everyone together. I don't remember it word for word, but
Yeah.
he said something along the lines of the game can be used as a way to bring people together.
And he's right. I mean, I think we can all think of different sports moments. Like I remember when Osama bin Laden was announced that he was dead in the Phillies Mets game, and it was spreading around the crowd, right? And even post 9/11, the first game at Shea Stadium when Piazza hit a home run, like sports brings people together, man. So yeah. Rough transition here, but I don't really know how else to do it. So Jared, like I said, is our one of our recruiting experts here, hosts Who's Got Next, and is posting intel and information at michigan.rivals.com all the time. So we've got him on to talk some 2024 recruiting. Recently, Rivals 250 update came out. Whole host of Michigan targets in that list. And of course, some of the negative stuff that's going to be said right away is about the 2023 class that didn't really have a lot of those top targets, right? It's a good class, maybe not what you would have expected rankings-wise coming off of back-to-back Big Ten championships and back-to-back college football playoff berths. So I guess, Jared, what I'm saying is put it on the line right now. I'm going to hold you to it. How many of these top 250 players are they going to get? Just playing. Totally kidding. No, where do you think Michigan sits with some of these folks, man?
Yeah, no, I mean, they're in a good spot for a lot of them. And if you saw the list that we posted yesterday, I mean, that's really not even everyone. I tried to keep it limited to the guys who there was maybe a little bit of steam with. Because, if I posted every single player that they've offered in the top 250, then it would have been about 225 players. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that they've had some good steam with so far. I know that Josh just did a little update on Blake Frazier. He's a guy who just entered into that Rivals 250 and all the way up to the 52nd spot. So definitely a good name to keep an eye on there. Aaron Childs at linebacker, another one. Jordan Marshall out of Ohio. I know that's a fun one to talk about. Talking about another rivalry there. Maybe one that we don't have to be as lighthearted about with Ohio State. Always a fun rivalry on the field and even in recruiting as well. And they're definitely making it a point to go get some Ohio guys. They've already done it in the 2024 class. We've got a multitude of four-star guys already committed and in the fold. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think they're definitely off to a good start. I know I said it in the quick little podcast that I did the other day, but I think the ceiling is very, very high for this class if they can keep the momentum going the way they have right now.
I think Jordan Marshall is probably my favorite name to watch right now, just because even when Michigan's been down, there's been battles for running backs every year. Harbaugh's been here, right? They've fought over the same guys. Donovan Edwards, I can still picture that recruiting picture that was going around of him in the Ohio State jersey after the game. So, yeah, going in and Michigan versus Ohio State right there. That's definitely one of the names I'm going to watch. And then obviously, Josh, the other name in the 2024 class that everybody's watching, maybe you've heard of him, quarterback Jaden Davis. We've been talking about him for a year. I mean, you put in your future cast prediction. There it is for Davis to go blue, pick Michigan back last summer.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you haven't moved off of that yet. And I guess, handicap this recruitment for me. Where do you think things stand with Davis? What's coming up? And Michigan fans are nervous, so I'm not going to ask you if they should be, because they are. But just kind of tell me where you think things stand right now with Davis.
Yeah, I think this one has gone on a little bit longer than I originally anticipated. I think this one originally I thought it was going to be over in the summer, and then it kept getting pushed back, got pushed back again, and now we don't really have an idea of when that decision is going to come. But I still feel good about Michigan's chances, and those I speak to still feel good about it. Michigan in particular feels good about it. I think they did a really good job of quelling some fears, with Jim Harbaugh and the whole NFL stuff again that happened. There was some nervousness from Davis's crew, because they want to coach, or they want to play for Harbaugh if they're going to commit to Michigan. So then, not to mention the Weiss stuff that happened. I don't really think that had a whole heck of a lot of impact on him. I think Harbaugh's been his number one main recruiter for a while now. And, when the Weiss thing happened, he called Davis personally and told the family that, he's going to be their number one point at recruiting. So, again, I don't think, I don't think Michigan is trending away. I never thought they trended away even during this Harbaugh stuff. I just think there was just a little bit of nervousness because, it's if Jaden Davis were to decide today, I'd still say Michigan. And, if Jim Harbaugh's not there, what's the point? What's the point of committing? Because your coach isn't going to be there. Who knows what kind of system, all that kind of stuff factored in. So, maybe it allowed, a couple of schools to come back in. I know Ohio State's trying. They're knocking on the door, and I don't know how that's going to work considering the relationship that Jaden Davis had with Ohio State, and then they took Dominic Raiola over him, and that kind of ruffled some feathers a little bit. Now they're coming to grovel back to try to get him back. So, I don't know how effective that's going to be. Obviously, you've got North Carolina involved as well. Clemson too. They're involved in a couple of quarterbacks, but man, it's just Michigan has been on that crew, not just him, but that entire crew of Providence Day kids for a long time. And there's a lot of positivity in that corner. And, we'll see how that factors in. And, the positive thing that, that's happening is Jaden Davis is planning to visit for the spring game. So that'll be, a good thing to kind of maybe whether you shore it up or you get the deal done. That still remains to be seen, but that'll go a long way. I think that's like the 5th time he's visited campus in, 6 months or whatever it is. That I think that speaks volumes. So, as far as I know, he hasn't visited North Carolina yet. I mean, he hasn't really visited anywhere else than Clemson and Tennessee and Michigan. Those are the 3 I know for sure. So, yeah, I mean, for what I would say and what I would suggest is to follow the offers. Michigan is yet to offer anyone else at the quarterback position. There's a kid out of Maryland, Michael Van Buren, that they would be interested in if things were to go south with Jaden Davis. So if you start to hear Van Buren's name mentioned a lot more, then that's when I think you should start to worry about Davis. But to be honest, I don't have any reason to be nervous yet, and I really haven't for quite some time. So, we'll see what happens. I mean, this thing could go south, or things stay status quo. But I think with Jim Harbaugh, reaching back out to the family, and Kirk Campbell also doing a good job of getting involved too. I think they've kind of simmered those fears a little bit and kind of let things even out.
I think that the eggs in one basket feeling is where a lot of the anxiety is coming from. Definitely, because what happened with Dante Moore.
Yeah,
right?
No, it's fair. It's fair. It's a fair argument to make.
The Van Buren one is interesting too, though, because for a while there, it kind of felt like Van Buren was Michigan's to have if they just basically told him his offer was committable, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of that was based on, 1, the Biff Poggi connection, right? Yeah. And then 2, some reciprocated interest. And at this point, he's put out a top 8 that didn't include Michigan, right?
Yeah.
So in the same way as, I don't know, the Ohio State thing, I'm with you. The Michigan recruiting for Jaden Davis picked up because he was mad at Ohio State and wanted to go beat him after that, right? So it'd be interesting to see him turn back around. And then same thing with Van Buren at this point, that kind of, hey, you're our second choice thing. But at the end of the day, they have conversations every day. Maybe they get past some of that, and guys are going to go to the school they want to go to, right? So point is, if he's planning on visiting for the spring game, that means we're probably still time out past that before we're getting into a commitment. So if you're not comfortable, get comfortable, right?
Yeah, right.
So the good thing is, between now and that spring game, we can kind of start talking Michigan 2023 football. Spring practices coming up. We've already started a lot of our spring preview over at michigan.rivals.com, different position breakdowns and what position battles we think there will be, et cetera, et cetera. But Brock, this team is loaded, man. There's just no other way to put it. The amount of players that could have gone to the NFL and came back, the amount of freshmen and sophomores that performed at an elite level last year and are back, the 7 incoming transfers that Michigan has added, all with starting experience. And I mean, other than Tuttle, the backup quarterback, all are probably expected to contribute pretty heavily. So I guess with all that said, Michigan, a likely top 3 team going into the season, all of that. What's the storyline you're probably most interested in for spring practice as we get ready to kind of kick off the journey to the 2023 season?
For me, it's something we've touched on a little bit throughout, I guess, the last couple of weeks and just after the season ended. But I feel like it's Maureen Walker and his transition from wide receiver to potentially cornerback, if that's the route they want to go. And we were talking on the boards a few weeks ago. One of our posters made a post about it, I think, and how he ran the 6.1 shuttle time or whatever it was, that insane hand timed shuttle that he ran, which obviously not the same as a laser or anything like that, but he's certainly got some athletic ability, and I feel like Michigan's pretty set at wide receiver. I mean, Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson, AJ Henning, you got all these guys that have all this experience, and I feel like it'd be a lot easier for Walker to see the field on the other side of the ball, and he's had some experience there in high school, if I'm not mistaken, and he should be maybe that guy to go to on the opposite side of Will Johnson. And so I think just if Michigan wants to put him there, see how he plays during the spring, they have a lot of time. I mean, the season's still 7 months away at this point. So plug him in there, maybe see how he plays and go from there if you don't like any of the other corners that you have. But the quickest way for Walker to see the field is certainly at corner, in my opinion. And that's an area of need that Michigan certainly has more of right now than wide receiver.
That's a great choice. That's already kind of been, he's probably going to get the Sainristil treatment this spring, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you one guy that wants him to start across from Will Johnson, and that's Will Johnson. So he might be his biggest fan online, man. And the kid's a freak. So yeah, his path to wide receiver might be what Andrell Anthony was supposed to be last year. You know, we saw Michigan trying to force the deep ball to him with his speed and ups. That could be his role, but I'm with you. I think if his path to get on the field quickest might be at corner, and I'd love to see a 6'4" corner over there, physical with ups across from Will Johnson. I think that'd be great. I'll go ahead and go next just because you're kind of leading into what mine was going to be, which is what is Michigan going to do with the wide receivers? We know the top 2 are Cornelius Johnson and Roman Wilson. I would argue, though, both weren't necessarily used in a way that we've seen them use so far in their careers at Michigan. Roman Wilson took 90% of his snaps at the slot last year, and Cornelius was in more of that outside role with Ronnie Bell coming back, right? So Cornelius led the team in receiving yards, touchdowns, receptions when Bell was injured in 2021 and took kind of a step back with Bell's return. So now with Bell gone, somebody's got to be the main target share for JJ, right? I mean, I think it was Cornelius, Roman, and I don't remember who else combined were less targets than Ronnie Bell, right? So significant target. So I want to see if Roman's going to stay in the slot. Cornelius goes back to more of that Z receiver, like they used him against Ohio State. Took some deep shots with him, right? Moved him around a little bit. And then that would open the door for Darius Clemens to play outside and be the big body receiver for Michigan. If Roman Wilson takes over that Ronnie Bell role, then we're talking – sorry, my kid's at the door. We're talking AJ Henning, maybe Tyler Morris is the sophomore freak show wide receiver that comes in instead of Darius Clemens. So I'm going to be interested. I mean, Clemens was the star of last year's spring game and then obviously didn't play much. So I'm going to be watching the wide receiver battle because there's not a lot of position battles and who that wide receiver 3 is and how Michigan uses them. I think it could be a big tell. And heck, the wide receiver 3 could be Donovan Edwards at this point, for being honest, right? So, Josh, what is the storyline you're most interested in watching heading into spring practice?
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback off Brock here. I think, who is the guy behind Will Johnson? Obviously you got Will, and then you got Mike Sainristil as 2 kind of known quantities there at defensive back. But then after that, you don't really have much. I mean, fortunately they have good depth at safety. with Rod Moore and Makari Page and those guys coming back. So you've got kind of a little bit of cover there, but experience wise, outside of Will Johnson, that they don't really have much. And I really thought defensive back was going to be something that they addressed in the transfer portal. I mean, they tried to, but it didn't work out, which, that's okay. They have belief in their guys. And Klink is made sure to, get these guys plenty of practice reps at different spots and different scenarios. Obviously it doesn't equate to game reps, but you've got guys out there that kind of know the system pretty well and are just kind of waiting to be slotted out there. So, a guy like Jaden McBurrows is a guy that I'm really interested in seeing. The coaching staff really liked him. A knee injury late in 21 kind of derailed, 22 for him, really. I mean, and at the same time, I think that was kind of the coach's plan to kind of ease him back into it because they didn't really need him. So they kind of just allowed him to rehab and make sure he was 100% until he finally got his uniform on. So he's a guy that I could see really stepping up and taking that, defensive back 2 role. Had some nice plays in 21 when he was out there sparingly, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of unknowns there. I mean, you're talking about like Brock mentioned, Maureen Walker, you got Pollard back there, a lot of unknowns, talented guys, but unknown. And, I remember a couple of years ago when we were talking about how they were going to place Jordan Lewis and those guys, and Lavert Hill stepped up, and a couple of other guys filled in right away. So, this time we're always talking about, what happens, and then eventually someone always steps up. So, I think that trend will continue considering who they have coaching that position. Just by default, I think, Steve Clinkscale is that good. So that's going to be we're talking about a team with very, very minuscule issues with it. And, I think the defensive back's probably the largest one. I mean, you can make an argument for special teams because you lose both kicker and punter, which I argue the kicker is probably the bigger loss than Brad Robbins. Nothing against him, but, Jake Moody is Jake
We
Moody.
are losing that mustache, though.
Yeah. R.I.P. to the mustache.
Yeah.
But, I think, Jake Moody is he's that clutch kicker that comes around once in a generation. So, yeah, I mean, very, very small holes that Michigan will have to fill. And, there's still a possibility to add more in the transfer portal when it opens up during the May 1st through 15th window. So, I mean, if you're a grad transfer, you can transfer at any time. But, if you're trying to go for an underclassman, that May 1st through 15th is the one to look out for. So we'll see what happens. There's talent there, but a lot of question marks as to, what they have behind Will Johnson.
I think you touched on it. It looks so glaring of a need because they're so loaded everywhere else, right? So
Yeah.
There's a lot of positions every year that a guy without a lot of experience is going to have to come in and start. But compared to the rest of the team, it's like, oh, who's going to be CD2?
Yeah, right.
But you're right. It's talent with, almost no experience, right? Burrows got hurt because he was such a physical player, right? Maybe it might have overdone it. So you mentioned some names like, Pollard and Cody Jones. And so that'll be a fun one to watch as well because it's a legit position battle. And like Brock said, if Walker's over there, that's just going to be a fun battle to watch. But 3 years ago, I don't think anybody saw Jamon Green coming up and doing what he was able to do, not for just that one season in 2020, but for his career. DJ Turner came out of nowhere 2 years ago. And as much as everybody loved Will Johnson, he was CB4. He finishes the year probably CB1 statistically, right? But guys tend to rise up. I'm not saying anybody's 5-star Will Johnson on this roster right now, but guys show up. So, Jared, we've all talked a ton, so if we haven't stolen your thunder or taken your idea, I will be impressed. But is there a storyline you are interested in that we haven't mentioned, or do you just want to build off of anything we've said?
Yeah, kind of just building off what y'all said a little bit. I mean, Darius Clemens was a guy that I covered a lot out of high school when he was playing in Oregon. I know he went to I think Utah for a little while during all the COVID stuff because there were a lot less strict about the rules playing over there. So he was a guy that I was super excited about when I saw that he was going to Michigan. And as you mentioned, surprised a lot of people last year. but didn't really quite pan out for him on the field. But maybe this is the year that could happen. Y'all mentioned that there's a bunch of talent there. But then also, just on the offensive line, back-to-back Joe Moores, but lost a couple guys like Olu and like Hayes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. They did sort of reload a little bit in the portal and still have a lot of guys returning as well. But if they can fill those gaps that they lost and continue to have that same production that they had in the running game, Corum heals up nicely. Donovan Edwards just toting it. Even get Stokes in the mix a little bit. Then I think that the running game could be pretty dangerous, and that's what I'll be watching for in the spring.
I gotta be honest, Jared. As good as the Michigan offense is going to be, it sounds even better with your accent, man. so smooth. But yeah, no, I'm with you. No, I'm with you. I want Clemens to be the guy so bad because he looks the part. Just on paper, it's like, I kind of mentioned with Will Johnson and Mason Graham, it's been actually nice to see some of these higher recruits with height come in, get to perform as a freshman, and we're like, hey, we get 2 more years of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
How many times with Peppers and Rashawn Gary and some other dudes did it feel like when they left, we didn't really get to see their full potential? They didn't play a ton. Yeah. That's my fear with a guy like Clemens, where it's like, get him out there now, because once he does start playing, I don't think he's going to be here long, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, guys, awesome show. Glad to have everyone back. Glad to have the conversations we've had. We will be live almost every podcast we air. So if you're listening to us, thank you. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're watching, or if you're not, go to YouTube, subscribe, hit the notification bell, right? That way you're going to know when we go live. You can come in, contribute comments, whether it's Jared and Seth on Who's Got Next, or Dennis, who's doing our daily show every 1 p.m. and interacting with folks in the comments. We want to make sure that you're coming on with us. And of course, basically everything we've talked about today, and Jared's insider intel and recruiting, and Josh's insider intel on what's going on with the programs, can be found at michigan.rivals.com. So if you're following us here, make sure you're heading over there as well, so you have access to that intel and our community, the Den. We believe it's the best message board community in Michigan sports, and don't take our word for it. You can ask our subscribers online. We're really, really proud of what we've been building over there. So thank you for watching, listening, and following. And this has been Hail to the Podcast.